welcome to episode 18 of the Hard Truth About B2B e-commerce. I'm your co-host, Isaiah Bollinger of Trellis, and I'm here with Tim.
Hey, I'm Timothy Peterson, working with the wonderful team at Trellis, and welcome to the Hard Truth About B2B e-commerce. Let me just give you a word from our sponsor, Punchout2Go. They are a global B2B integration company specializing in connecting commerce business platforms with e-procurement and ERP applications. Punchout2Go's iPaaS technology seamlessly links business applications to automate the flow of purchasing data. With their solution, you can immediately reduce integration complexities for Punchout catalogs, electronic purchase orders, invoices, and other B2B sales order automation documents. So thank you once again to our sponsor, Punchout2Go, and back to you, Isaiah.
Yeah, and thank you to our two new guests, Tyler and Beckie. I believe I reached out on LinkedIn, and you guys were nice enough to respond because we've had a lot of agencies and tech people on, but not enough people that are actually in the trenches working for the B2B companies themselves. So Tyler, I think you reached out back to me and said, hey, we'll join. We're a real distributor manufacturer type company, and it's nice to get two guests on that kind of have different perspectives within the company. So Tyler, I know you're kind of more on the technical side, and Beckie, you're kind of on the marketing side. Could you give us a little more background on how you got into this and how you got to where you are?
Sure. I've actually worked at Marshall Wolf Automation for about 25 years. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, we launched the website back in 2004, AdWords, and we've moved on since then. So yeah, I'm more on the front end of things. My title is Digital Strategy Manager. We are a smaller company though, so Tyler and I wear many hats.
So you started before digital though.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was brought in a few years ago to handle the technical side. My title is Magento Web Developer, but right now I don't do a lot of that. We are currently migrating our ERP, so hope to go live with that in about 6 weeks. So that is where my time has really been focused.
Gotcha. What's the ERP you guys are moving to?
We are moving from Nav to NetSuite.
Okay.
Cool. Cool. We might have to get into that a little bit and understand what made you guys want to do that. So, yeah, let's talk. You know, from what I understand, you guys would consider yourselves more of a distributor, correct? Is that how you would describe the company? So obviously, you guys are doing e-commerce. You're invested in it, but a lot of distribution companies are, you know, maybe a little bit hesitant to go full into e-commerce. And, you know, I think you guys, it's, you know, pretty easy to see that you're e-commerce when you go to the website. So what was the impetus for that? And what do you think other distributors should be doing to kind of grow with e-commerce?
We were very lucky. In 2004, a vendor that we worked very closely with had hired a developer to create an e-commerce software for business to business.
Mm-hmm.
The owner had called me up. He's like, hey, I need people to test this. If I give it to you for free, will you test it? It took us about 2 seconds to say, yes, we will. And we probably were on their platform for a good 10 years with no costs. We just did all the feedback.
Wow.
When it first started, I mean, we had to load each part number manually, set a price, you know, and then it went on. Over time, we had configurators. They made so many improvements over time. And then probably after about 10 years, they were no longer to make updates, and they kind of went back to their core business, and we had to look for our own platform, and it was quite eye-opening.
So you guys have been in e-commerce pretty early on in the journey.
Yes.
And knew that it was an important part of the business. So how did you guys kind of find Magento? You know, what made you guys decide to go to Magento after that?
We researched a number of things. We worked with a few different companies to narrow it down to Magento. With us being an industrial automation, there's a lot more complexity with that as well. We were looking for something that could integrate with our ERP at the time.
Mhm.
We were looking at connectors that made sense for us. There was a lot of factors that went into it. Just being able to, we were on Community when we first went on, so that was nice for us going from a completely free website to
Another free platform. Yep.
Yep.
Have you guys
So
upgraded to the paid version? Or are you now on the enterprise? Or
Yes.
gotcha.
Yep.
Cool. So you
what are
guys
we on, Tyler? Year 2 with that, I think. With that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that explains it. So quite the evolution. So you've been doing this for almost 15 years in B2B then.
Mhm.
Awesome.
So let me interject with a quick question, because something just occurred to me. And again, I like going a little off script, as Isaiah knows. It's good and bad, right? So, prior to getting, online in 2004, you were there, Beckie, right?
Oh, yeah.
Prior, right? So what was that? I'm just kind of curious about that timeline, like the year or two before and the year or two after, and how things work, because there have been so many revolutions since, the smartphone and mobile revolution and social media and all these other things. But what was it like really in that moment, like year or two before, year or two after, for the team and for your customers?
We were pretty small. So I was inside sales at the time. I think there were 2 of us maybe. And we took emails, phone calls, faxes, mail stuff still came in, purchase orders. I still very clearly remember the first order that came through the website and just staring at it like someone just placed an order, and
Exciting.
then we had to completely re-enter it into our DOS system. It wasn't like anything flowed, but it was just so amazing. Like someone did that. It was really cool. It was, but at the time I was an inside sales, so I loaded it on the website, watched you order it, and then I took it off and I processed it.
Mm-hmm.
That was what it was. Our inside sales team, all we were doing was pretty much printing from the website and then re-entering it in our system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we reached so many more people because, it was just so different. And then AdWords was the other game changer there for sure.
Yeah. So you guys are, I'd say you're a little bit ahead of the curve for a lot of B2B companies. You started in 2004, so you've had 15 years to learn and improve. For a lot of the companies out there in B2B that are maybe in their second or third year with e-commerce and they're still kind of like struggling or maybe just trying to get better at it, what did you see, like what was that evolution of that 15 years? Like what were the benefits and the learnings that you think over time made you guys realize like, hey, we got to invest more into this, and this is where distribution.
When we were able to integrate it with our ERP was huge. Because that took out all of that order processing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another big event was getting an in-house Tyler, for sure. Before that, I dealt with overseas developers. We had one in particular that was wonderful, but there was still the language barrier. If I had an idea or the team came up with an idea, we couldn't just implement it. We had to send out for a quote, wait to get an answer, make sure we understood. Tyler and I can talk about something on a Zoom meeting and he can implement it.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get
if it bombs, we can undo it. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Test so much quicker with him in the house. I mean, that was just about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
We got Tyler, and that was a big change.
Things were automating more of the processes from the website to the ERP, and then having the ability to make faster changes and iterate on the website and test.
And uploads too. Before we uploaded each individual part number, now we have someone on our team that just mass uploads products, updates pricing, changes descriptions. So that was definitely
more bulk processes and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's kind of what we see is like a lot of companies try and skip steps. They're trying to build like the flashy, nice modern site, plus get the ERP integration, plus get all their product data and all these things all in like one project. Would you agree that probably if you're kind of newer to this, it makes sense what what I like to tell people is focus on your product data and the ERP integration. Like, if you get your product data and your ERP integration working well, even if the site isn't the prettiest site in the world, you're still making kind of a giant leap forward in B2B. Would you kind of agree that that's where you would start if you were to start today? Let's say you had nothing right now.
Yeah. Oh, we do a lot of stuff differently. We had nothing right now.
I would, and the other thing I would say is it's going to be a constant improvement. There's no scenario where you have a vendor or you're set in your ways and that's just how it's going to be for 5 or 10 years. It's a constant improvement.
Yeah, and how would you look
often
at that?
Laugh.
Would you look at that as weekly, monthly? You know, for people that aren't familiar with this kind of like agile improvements, how would you look at that from just from a basic standpoint of time, I guess?
For us,
Tyler's laughing because it's a hard question to answer.
Yeah. I don't even know how to answer.
That's okay. That's okay.
I really don't.
Would you say, like, do you guys do like sprints or deployments? Like, how do you guys kind of try and chunk out the projects to make those constant improvements? Like, is it just when it's kind of ready, or do you have certain goals, you know, every few weeks?
We talk daily. I mean, daily. And if the team comes up with an issue, you know, we try and solve it. But I mean, as far as being proactive, daily. Probably.
So you're thinking like daily changes with bigger changes incrementally over time, like maybe a larger project that's a couple weeks gets launched, but literally you're making daily changes.
Yeah, we are making daily changes. When it comes to stuff like PPC, it's just stuff you have to manage daily.
Yeah. What about code changes, like the actual, you know, code base of Magento? Are you launching new code changes daily, or is that a little bit?
No, we haven't. So we were doing it a lot more last year when we went live with Magento 2. It required changes on a pretty regular basis. Earlier this year, we were an in-house company, and we obviously had to go remote.
Yeah.
So we had to go remote, and then 2 weeks later is when we started the kickoff meeting for our ERP migration. So right now, yeah,
been a good year.
It's for Magento 2. I did. I'm trying to remember, what was it that came out in April? Was it 2.3?
One of the 2.3.
4. 2.3.
Yeah.
So I did that one. I've done all the security updates, but we're kind of on hold for 2.4 until probably 2.4.1 comes out in October.
Gotcha.
So I've really tried to minimize the amount of work I'm doing on Magento, because right now we're working with Celigo to connect to NetSuite. So making changes to the Magento code base while implementing a new connection to a new ERP is something I'm really trying to avoid for the time being.
Gotcha.
I've had a few things come up where I had to do it, but I'm really trying to have that on hold.
So you guys are trying to pick your battles. Like, you can't do everything all the time. So you've learned kind of where to focus.
Yes.
And I think that's very
important. Let me say, oh yeah, I agree. I guess I would segue then to, you're talking about the NetSuite, you know, project kicking off during COVID and all of this. I mean, so your team are they in an office again, or they're all still remote? I mean, still remote?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how is that working for you guys with you know, any of the changes that come up? I mean, the way you communicate this to your team, just adoption in general. Like, how do people learn about what's happening, and how do they, you know, internally, how do they work with it? And then how do you communicate to your customers if the changes are big enough?
So it was a big change for us, and it was probably a little bit larger for us than it would be for a lot of companies. We are a family-owned company, and it's always been treated that way. Most people in our office, I would say, would rather work in the office than remote. We are similar to working in a large family. In fact, we don't have a typical office structure. It was one house, and then it was a second house, and then it was a warehouse built on behind that house. So it was kind of a unique office situation as well. So it's when you wanted to talk to somebody, you just walked over to their desk. So it's been a big change for us. We've started using Slack a lot more. Microsoft Teams. About 2 weeks before we started going remote, we switched from a G Suite backend to an Office 365 backend for our email. So I'm glad that got done before we got sent home, so people had a little bit of time to work with that. So we started using Teams as well, and then Zoom quite a bit.
And that's worked well in general.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we're finding a lot of shared docs, and it's definitely been a learning process. And as anyone who's ever switched ERPs know, it's a mammoth project, regardless. I think we're finding our way.
We had we still have it, a server on site that was shared documents. And now we're trying to move most of those documents up into the cloud using SharePoint sites and stuff like that. It's in process, but while doing the ERP migration, it's difficult to get it all done at once. We would have liked to have staggered it a little bit more, but that's not how it worked out this year.
So just really quickly for our listeners, if they haven't had a chance to get familiar with your brand, do you want to give just a quick overview of, because I've certainly checked you guys out, I know what you do, but would you mind just describing it a little bit more?
Yep, Marshall Wolf Automation was started in the mid-'80s by Hans Wolf, and we started as an OEM, outside sales, as Matt did. E-commerce started 2004, and shortly after, we also started our systems integration UL 508 panel shop. So we kind of have these three divisions that work very well together, all feeding into each other. But we're an industrial automation distributor, so we work very closely with our manufacturers. We are an authorized stocking distributor for the brands we carry.
So going back to this topic of adoption, it sounds like you guys are very family-owned, in some ways kind of old school mentality company, but then you guys are now adopting a lot of cloud technology, Slack, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, NetSuite, I believe is considered more or less cloud technology. So how is that adoption for the company? Is the culture kind of adapting to that, and how has that gone from?
I'll let Tyler talk to that, but I do want to say management has always had buy-in. Hans unfortunately passed away in 2018. He loved the website. 2004, yes, the web. Yeah, he supported it 100%. And if you are going, the what?
It came from top down, there was top-down buy-in always.
It's very important. If you are trying to launch an e-commerce site, you need management buy-in.
Yeah.
All this stuff costs money, and they need to have buy-in, so that's really important. The first month we did Google, I had to go in and ask for the credit card. I spent $2,000, and I was like, what did I just do? And they're like, keep going. Do you think you can make it better? Yeah, we can make, because back then you just go on any keyword. You didn't know. There was no documentation.
Yeah.
I remember.
It was fun. Back when AdWords was fun and you could find new things, and but you need that buy-in. It's so important, and we still have that today. I mean, they are very open. We can go right up to our VP or whoever we need, and run with it. And that helps us a lot to stay on top of things.
That's awesome.
But about Teams in that, Tyler, you can probably talk more to that about how we went that way.
Uh, it went pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
There's always some bumps in the road the first few days. Um, we had uh, like one of our bigger issues wasn't necessarily software related, but hardware related. We were all in the same office. We all had desktops. Uh, For people in customer service who are processing orders, they didn't have a headset or a mic or a webcam like that. They haven't needed it for 30 some years. Why would they need it now? And then get sent remote, and I can set up Zoom really easy, but then it was, all right, well, we got to get the headsets. We got to get the webcams.
Yeah. So
And
it
I
was
know,
really a hardware or a personal adaption problem of just getting them set up with a
yeah,
computer that'll work. Because getting everyone set up with 40 laptops, or I don't know how many people you had to do that for, but I can imagine that's I know that struggle every time we hire someone. Even just getting one laptop can sometimes feel like a pain.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yep.
So that's interesting to hear that that was a challenge. So yeah, I want to make sure we do still get to some of the other topics. And I think we can come back to some of this stuff. But how did B2B e-commerce marketing evolve back? Like when you started, you were. I'm sure it reminds me of the Gary V. I don't know if you ever listened to him, where he's like, when I started AdWords, like you could get everything for like 10 cents because like no one was like advertising on wine. And I'm guessing in 2004 there wasn't a lot of like industrial automation ads, so you're probably like the only person advertising on these ads. But today, as we all know, this is like a multi-billion-dollar, so I'm sure it's very competitive. So how did that evolve, and how is B2B?
I can speak to the beginning. Yeah, I mean, first going on, I was like, power supply, not thinking, right? Drive, whatever. And you're like, whoa, okay, these aren't what people are looking for. And I don't know if any of you remember like the long tail keywords. So fun. When you can find that long tail keyword for 5 cents and that's what they're looking for, fantastic. Yeah, we did. We definitely evolved. We originally started, we actually built websites around a couple of our categories. We had like a power supply website, we had a buzzer website, we had our main website. And over the years, realized, okay, this does not make sense because we're having to update all these different sites, manage all these different accounts. The thought was originally maybe I could have multiple ads. I could have Power Supply's commercial automation and one for Power Supply Direct. Google got smart to that pretty quick, so we merged it all together, the one website. Shopping, that was a big change for us, and I can let Tyler manages a lot of that now, so he could talk more to that. But yeah, I'm back to that. I love AdWords.
Yeah.
The biggest change I think in the last few years has been shopping and Google pushing their smart shopping. And machine learning isn't always great for us. We've tried it in ads, we've tried it on category pages, a little bit in search, some product recommendations on the site. And it's what we sell when it comes to electrical equipment is very specific. And it's difficult to upsell somebody on something because they typically need very specific specifications. And so smart shopping doesn't always work for that. It shows, they're taking their information based off what they think will convert, or when you target return on ad spend, your higher dollar items. But if a customer needs a specific horsepower, that's what they need. If somebody needs 3 horsepower, trying to upsell them on the 5 or 10 horsepower, in many ways would be a detriment to their project. And machine learning just doesn't take that into consideration. The other thing that where you can tell smart shopping is really B2C focused is we have a decent amount of products on our site that can't be in shopping. And the reason is the weight. For us, we have to have the shipping weight in there for UPS so they can show shipping costs. And I actually spoke with them recently about this. We have an item on our site that is $70,000 and it's 1,100 pounds. And I would like to be able to show that in shopping, but it doesn't have a shipping price. And anybody who would be buying something like this understands that it's not going UPS. You know it's not going UPS. You need to get a freight quote. But Google hasn't budged on that.
Yeah.
So there's some quirks that are.
So this is kind of an interesting topic that I don't think we've got into as much as we should have, and Tim, it kind of ties into one of your favorite topics is what can B2B learn from B2C, and it seems like you guys are doing it where there is value in Google Ads and Facebook ads, and one of the reasons we started this podcast is there's a lot of podcasts around e-commerce and the basic kind of B2C things that you would do on Facebook and Google, but you guys are kind of like taking this B2C approach to some extent and trying to kind of make it work for B2B, and then you're seeing kind of where some of these things break down. So like, is there something that you guys do like on a personal level or something around B2B that you kind of like bring to the table to kind of like augment these problems that you find with Google Shopping or whatever? Like maybe it's just calling the people or after they've bought one thing, or
so in the last year, business to business has really grown. It's really a topic of conversation where it wasn't not that long ago. So one of the things that I've tried to do is try to give good feedback. It's very easy to sit on the sidelines and complain, which I do plenty of. But
we all do.
we use Avalara for our taxes.
Sure.
So I've had discussions with them about how to better integrate their software with the business to business module of Magento. And giving them that feedback that they can then take and improve their product, I think is important. So I've really tried to work with our vendors on that.
So you're trying to kind of work with these tech vendors that have historically built their products for kind of like the B2C model and say, hey guys, like these are our problems in B2B. And have you seen momentum of that? Has Avalara come back and added that to their roadmap, or?
It's getting there. Avalara is great at calculating taxes. They've got that down to a science. But I would be willing to bet that most of their sites, most people are taxable. Whereas with the stuff we sell, it's almost always sold to a business, meaning they have their exemption certificates. And so trying to upload that in the checkout and have it approved is not, it's not the cleanest process. So we've just been working on improvements with that. And I do think that would be mutually beneficial for us and them, because if we have problems with that up front and then it starts going into somebody asks us to remove tax later and then it's refunds, it starts becoming very complicated. So we try to make it easy at checkout so we don't have to do that.
So let me just let me see if I can ask a couple questions around that topic specifically. So I've done B2B and B2C e-commerce. Been doing it for a long time, actually since before 2004. It's a long time now. But some of the folks that I work with, including some folks today, are nonprofits, right? So they have expressed similar concerns about you get tax exempt certificates and selling to institutions, educational institutions, cultural institutions, government bodies, and all of this. So a lot of those folks have, to an extent, figured it out. The bigger issue from my perspective was exactly what you're saying about the $70,000 item and the freight and trying to figure out what the heck to do about that. And the only solution that I've seen recently that people have done is kind of a multi-step process where there's a pause and then there's a live chat that connects directly to your customer service. So basically you have them in the cart, for that particular item. And it says, this is not something you can ship in. Normally, we're going to connect you to live chat now. And, then basically that screen pops up and you just ask whatever standard questions, usually that are first bot generated to get the right answers. Then it goes to a human, and then you close the sale and you get the freight figured out and off you go. So is that something you guys have worked on?
Yeah, we actually bypass that. We do have live chat, but someone can check out on these big items on our website, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
We just threw up a freight thing that says, due to the weight of this item, customer service will contact you with a freight quote. Your order will not be processed until we agree to that.
Oh, okay.
Place the order online, and then customer service will get freight quotes, or if they want to do collect, whatever they want to do, they'll work it out.
Yeah, I think what you're dealing with is...
We'll do anything to get a customer through checkout. We don't want but shopping doesn't let us get even in there to get them in there. So
yeah, the parameters of Google and Facebook, that's and all these ad platforms, that's the challenge, because they have rules. I mean, we've seen weird rules for certain product categories or whatever it may be. I mean, you could get taken down for all sorts of reasons. So I think that's just the ongoing challenge that everyone faces, is complying to their rules and what they offer. And it's definitely not very B2B oriented.
No. And I'm surprised how it is in Google's case, they don't have a way to opt out. A perfect example for us is we sell something called a selector switch. I have no idea how many of them, but we have a lot. They have been flagged in Google as a gun part for years. It does not matter how many times I reach out to them. It just keeps getting flagged that way. And the ones we sell are for electricity. So even if you wanted to, they could not be used in any way for a gun. But Google has automated so much that they're just going to be
triggers
flagged.
the algorithm, and it falls under some blanket that says this is being used for weapons, and you're just like, and you can't talk to someone like, change your algorithm, like Google change.
Yep.
It's tough across categories too, because I've worked with a lot of health and wellness businesses, again, B2B and B2C, same issues with Google, where an ingredient will get flagged. And, there are a lot of ways in which ingredients and different combinations are completely fine, and in other combinations they're not. And then it becomes this nightmare at Google trying to figure out exactly, how you talk up the chain and make sure people know that this is safe, this is something that's completely legit, and this is not, right? And so it's exactly the same, scenario with what you're saying in the selector switch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one other thing too is shopping for us is a lot of times someone might be looking for something vague, like an AC drive. For B2C, like if I just type in red t-shirt, okay, I can look at all these red t-shirts and shopping, it's fine. If you're looking for an AC drive, they randomly pick drives, to what Tyler was saying before. They can't use probably any of them over there. They need to filter down. So it doesn't work as well for those types of searches. We see it do well when someone has an actual part number for our business, because then it can be exactly what they're looking for. But it also makes it really easy to compare all pricing right away, and it's the same. So it becomes very competitive.
So I'm going to combine a couple questions here, because I think we're covering part of the topics already, which is great, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to ask you guys a little bit more about, because Isaiah mentioned Facebook, but what are you doing in social media? And really the part two to that is what works and what doesn't for you guys. Like, let's talk about success and failure. So I'm just curious about the social media aspect, because a lot of B2B players haven't really gone there in the way that the B2C players have. So let's talk about that first.
Well, how are you defining success as?
Well, are you building?
Not there.
Are you building? Well, I mean, it's multi-level, right? I mean, are you building engagement? You getting awareness of new customers? Are you converting? So really, success could be a lot of different things. So you can define it, but I'm just kind of curious. First, on the social media.
We do it to be there. Some a little more than others. Conversion-wise, though, which is what we're about, it's not been there for us. Tyler, you make it different.
So we talked about the importance of trying things and some success and some failures. I have tried on Facebook for us several different times with ads, and it was never really successful. We might be able to get to the break-even point, but that felt like it was about it. And I think some of that has to do with what we sell. It's not really an impulse buy. It's something you need, and you either need it or you don't. And so we never had great luck on Facebook with that. We still, being a family-owned company, we still put out blogs on Facebook with our Christmas parties and gatherings, because there have been people who have worked with us over the years who like to keep up. And it humanizes us as a company as well, but it's not really for, I'd say, monetary gain.
Well, I think where I was going with this is that there are very successful communities, for example, for plumbing, for electrical, for people who do landscaping, for people who do home renovation, for janitorial supplies. There really are very active and successful, actually, influencers, believe it or not, in each of those categories. I was just wondering if there was really one or two or three of those that you guys have cultivated or worked with over time.
So we're pretty diverse in our industries. Back in the day, we had some links that really gave us a nice boost in some forums, guys working on their lathes and their garages, and our drive worked. And but yeah, we have not seen, again, we do it and it's out there. I think for business to business, if I work with this business and they make conveyors, I don't expect him to go home on Facebook, his personal Facebook, and find our company to follow. It's not like maybe LinkedIn, which we do, that, but it's just a different B2C, it all about Facebook. Yeah.
So just the flip side then is really just what's successful for you guys and what is.
We're heavy on paid advertising.
Okay.
And
but we do the other things, of course, and Tyler does a lot with SEO.
Okay.
But we're heavy on paid advertising. It works very well for us.
I want to just get a little more specific for people that are new to this. Especially, I feel like a lot of B2B companies, especially distributors, they're very like salespeople driven. Their sales reps might have contacts and they kind of manually keep those relationships, even if they might order a little bit on the website. But how do you guys kind of like combine that? Because I'm sure you still have salespeople with the website and the AdWords and the paid advertising. And if someone buys through that, does the sales rep then become their account manager? Like, how do you kind of combine these two to be effective so they're not like too siloed, they feel kind of unified?
So when we first started, I don't think anyone thought, it wasn't seen as a disruptor to the outside sales at all. It was just completely separate. That's definitely changed over the last 10 years. I think a combination of new generation coming in and going online, people switching jobs a little more. I mean, back in the day, it was not uncommon for people to be at a job for 10 to 20 years and have a relationship with one distributor. I mean, there were many times we knew this distributor owns this account. Nobody go in there. That's way less. Coronavirus has really catapulted that up as well because people are able to visit and go in.
And they're shopping around for the best price.
Right, yeah. So I think that's But yeah, in recent years, probably in the last 5 years, we'll find our outside sales guys' accounts, find our website, place an order, whatever. That'll still go through to them. If we see something come over the website, we'll process it and we'll just shoot it over to them like, hey, this guy ordered online. That's not a problem.
And how effective do you guys see that being? Like, you're getting this lead gen from the pay-per-click. So then I think there's a lot of value there, because maybe you got some return on the buy from the ads, but then if the sales rep goes and turns it into, a big relationship, there's like a ton of value in it. So are you seeing that happen where the sales rep goes in and says, oh, by the way, we can do this?
Yeah, I think that helped the adoption. That helped them get on board with the website when we're like, hey, look at all this stuff maybe in your territory or in the industry you're really good with, or with a product that you know inside out. We definitely feed into the other divisions. We are the generator for sure.
That makes sense. Cool. So you would say that the website is almost like, in the sales term, the business development rep, where it's bringing in the leads in the business to some degree. I mean, obviously you can still have people going out there and getting leads, but when they come in, then you're still building a relationship after they've bought something. Cool. Yeah, I think that's what people should be doing. That's why I just want to make that clear for people that aren't doing this.
Yeah.
That like sales
definitely.
guy, like,
people are looking for you. When they come in, they're looking for you. It's a lot different than going out and trying to find. They're looking for you.
Yeah, and I especially want to make that clear for people that think that they should have a login only website and then all their products are hidden. You can't do any of this stuff, and there's still people with that mindset of, oh, it's B2B, like log into our portal, but they're losing all that B2C or that acquisition that you guys are doing, So
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that B2B can take away from B2C is if somebody is trying to give you money and they want to buy from you, don't make it difficult for them.
They tend to make it difficult.
Yeah. Don't require the login. It's gone away a little bit now, but for a while there were companies that you pretty much had to log on to their site in IE.
Sure. I mean, we still get a lot of our B2B requirements that custom companies are giving us is they want login only. So we should probably be pushing them harder to not do that, but it's a tough culture to get through, and that's hopefully that as this podcast gets bigger, people start to realize this. Let's stop giving people that requirement. Let's just make it. You're actually doing more work. It's actually more work to do that than to just have anyone be able to create an account, and then you can go back. You can still reach out to them after.
And you can encourage people. You can give perks for people to set up an account. By all means, I get it, but let them check out as a guest.
Yeah.
Definitely try and push them into logging in, but let them check out as a guest.
So I have a question about pricing. Do you have transparent pricing? So that, for example, it's volume based, or something to that effect, or are there secret special prices for certain customers hidden behind the scenes?
Well, there's always secret special pricing. For us, another thing with business to business that people, a lot of vendors are going to MAP, which is minimum advertised pricing.
Mm-hmm.
People love it or hate it. We love it because it means all authorized distributors, you have to be at this price or higher.
Yep.
There's nothing worse than there's plenty of market, everyone's doing well, and this rogue distributor comes in and puts his pricing 10% below everyone else. And everyone just wants to, okay, here we go, disrupt everything. Either we match, we tell on you, whatever. So that's helped us a lot with online pricing for a lot of our suppliers. It just really evens out everything, especially where the stocking distributors, sometimes, someone will come in for a short period of time and undercut us all. But other than that, it's very different by each manufacturer. If they don't have MAP, it depends on the other distributors. Sometimes we have brands that everyone plays very fair. We all want to make money. We want to be competitive, give the customer a good deal. Others, it's down and dirty, and we're all down here just to be competitive.
So do you, that's also tied to a pricing question, but do you follow any generally B2C kind of techniques, like you're going to have competitive pricing during Amazon Prime Day or during, Cyber Monday, or do you do things of that sort for your B2B?
We'll do promotions. We won't change our pricing necessarily. We'll do a promotion.
Okay.
Monday, we do. Yeah, we'll play in all those fields for sure. We try and make it fun.
The other thing with pricing that I think is important, which I haven't found a software that deals with this great, is you mentioned like tiered pricing, stuff like that. We do have some vendors that do that, but we also have vendors who don't. And then we have some vendors where everything has to be quoted because it's build to order. So it's not easy to put into a software system when you need so many different rules or not based off vendor.
So this is
because NetSuite's built that way.
Yeah, so this is where I think it gets really tricky and complicated. So, we could probably spend another hour talking about this, and maybe we'll have to have you guys back on so we can get into this more. But could you talk a little bit about, and I think Magento is really starting to get further along, and they've really transformed from like a B2C to now we mostly use them for B2B and B2C, but like it's rare that we use them just for B2C. We're usually working with them for B2B and B2C or just B2B. So they've developed this B2B module in the 2.2 version with the company accounts and the shared catalog. So how valuable have you started? It sounds like you're starting to use that. Has that
Sore subject, Isaiah. Sore. Can we
So-
pass?
with it?
So this, it's pretty good itself. One of the issues that I have found is there are some extension makers who do not consider it part of commerce.
Yeah.
So if you are looking for a specific extension and it says it works with commerce, that does not mean it necessarily works with B2B. So I've had 2 or 3 instances where I've gotten an extension, I've gotten it installed, and then it does not work with company accounts.
Yeah.
So there's been some frustrations there. But I will say in the last few months that has gotten significantly better. And it looks like they put a lot of work into it in 2.4 with the approval workflows.
Yeah, that's going to be a big thing for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that it gets a little bit easier.
So I think everyone in Magento can complain about community problems and issues, but everyone thinks the grass is greener on the other side, and we obviously we do more than Magento, so we see the problems of all the other platforms too. So I think all these platforms have pros and cons. But putting those aside, what are you using the B2B module, and is it like what did that change for you guys process wise? Like is that kind of a game changer for the business?
So we actually right now have that module turned off.
Oh wow.
We had it on up through earlier this year, and then it broke some stuff. And so we will have it up again by the end of the year, but we switched it off right at the end of February, which was right when we were putting in the new back end of the email system, and then everybody had to go remote.
Yeah. And you're like
ERP kickoff.
Sure.
Yeah, and then I think the big thing that we see that's where it gets complicated is how much do you put in the B2B module or Magento, and how much do you put in NetSuite? And obviously you want to sync the two, but if you sync everything, and we're dealing with a very large company that does a lot of B2B volume, and there gets to be a point where it doesn't make sense to sync everything in real time. Because if all the different systems, so you have to decide like what's the master system. So then it starts to become a game of what do you display only. So maybe it displays the data from NetSuite on the front end of Magento, but doesn't actually sync the data to the Magento database. It's just displaying it on the front end. And then you start to say, well, maybe we should just build a headless front end. And that's we could probably have a whole nother episode on that, right?
Yep. I think that's a whole other.
So,
what was your feeling when you found out Adobe bought Magento?
At first I was a little bit worried, but I think ultimately it's a good thing, because I think Magento is going in more, like, regardless of Adobe, it was going in more of an enterprise direction.
Yeah.
And Adobe has a lot of success in the enterprise. They've got a lot, I think, of very stable products. So I think they're bringing that to Magento. It's just going to take a while, and it's going to, Magento 2 is still fairly new in the sense that I think it really only came out in 2016. So it's only a 4-year-old product. So I think they're going to start to continue to stabilize and invest in it more and get it to a better place.
I also,
Tyler and I literally looked at each other and we were like, this is either going to be really good or really bad.
I think I've actually
like, please be really good.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. I mean, one of the positives that I've seen from folks I know are the communities, right? You're merging completely different, not necessarily overlapping communities, all the people who are like around Adobe's Creative Cloud Suite and all of this stuff. So you have like teams in these, a lot of different companies where there were people had like these Adobe skill sets and all of this Adobe stuff, and then people had these Magento skill sets and Magento stuff. And then when the companies merge, they actually broke down more silos, if you will, right? So it's been a positive for companies I know where folks were depending on Adobe products and had their Magento teams in place anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it was a positive.
I've actually been
had
very
some
impressed.
wins.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with their ability to kind of make it feel seamless and still make it feel like Magento, but it's also Adobe, so you get kind of Magento community effects. But then you get all the value of Adobe. And actually, our relationship with Adobe and Magento has improved a lot since they took over, because I think they have better structures around partnership and leadership around that. And so for us, it's actually been quite a pleasant surprise. But with every big company, there's always challenges, right? So there's going to be some of that, and
I was going to say, I think if you would have asked me this question 2 years ago, my thoughts on a Magento after we went with them, I wouldn't have been so kind, but it feels like they have gotten a lot better recently. And the easiest way for me to see that is upgrading the site, because we keep up on our patches and everything pretty regularly. And in like the 2.1 versions, if I was going to upgrade, I knew stuff was going to break and it was going to take me a while to fix it. And the last few I've done, they're pretty smooth, and it doesn't take long, and it's very refreshing. And then the other thing working with them was with the product Rex team. We were the first site to actually have that up on a production site.
Oh, wow.
And
that was awesome.
Working with them was fantastic. Like, they were just on top of it. So it does feel like they've gotten a lot better in the last like year or two since Adobe.
I agree. And I think it's going to continue to get better as Adobe realizes, hey, e-commerce is growing really fast, so we got to put a lot more money into this thing. So, and as we all know, they have quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
More so than just Magento on its own. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time, since I'm sure you guys got NetSuite to deal with. So I think you guys got your work cut out for you. And I think we'd love to bring you back, because I'm already thinking about all the more things that we could talk about. Maybe we'll talk about the B2B module when you get that back. And let us know how that goes, and let's have another episode on how that went and how that changed your processes.
Yep.
But what do you see, coming in this, I feel like this past decade was kind of like getting used to e-commerce and making it part of companies. And now it's more or less part of most B2B companies. Obviously, a lot are in very early stages, but I think more, it's becoming more like a common thing. Like we need e-commerce. What do you see as like kind of the next decade? Is it, taking it to the next level, or what do you see kind of the next 10 years, 5-10 years? I know it's very hard to predict, but.
Oh, what do we see, or the challenges?
What are you anticipating, or what are some of the bets that you're making that based on what you think is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years with e-commerce?
I think customers are going to expect a lot more, which, again, I need it now and I want it today. And how are you going to make that happen? Probably interactive personalization is always on the rise. We should maybe reading people's brains.
So you kind of see it as the customer expectation is going to be in B2B, basically like B2C, where it's like, I want my product now. I don't care that you're a B2B company. Like,
it used to be so different. Like, B2B had totally different expectations than B2C. And that line has merged almost.
So,
I expect a similar experience while I'm at work as I do it.
And I think that personalization is important, because the only way I think to do that in B2B is to have more personalization, because one of your customers might be $1 billion company and one of them might be a small guy, guy that needs a couple parts. And there's things that you're going to need to do on the website that might be very different to the $1 billion guy than for the guy that only needs $1,000 worth of parts. Yeah.
And the only other thing for me is that, like, the email automation, which again is going to offset the personalization. We're really getting that now too.
One thing I would add that I was fascinated by, I was having a conversation outside of this podcast, Isaiah. It was outside of the podcast. I was having a great conversation with someone, and they said that they were talking with a B2B company that's doing education and tech training. So they were partnering with educational institutions, because they said they were worried that in the next 5 to 10 years that everybody would go become like a developer or whatever, and they wanted people to actually be customers for their products 10 years out. So their thought was, we're going to educate people in starting their own businesses that are connected to all of these products. I thought that was such an interesting circular kind of like, wow, look at the future kind of way to approach that.
Because there's a company that we've talked to that has definitely invested in content around that and materials for starting businesses in what they supply. So it makes sense. And if you think about it, it's actually kind of what Shopify did. Like Shopify became very successful in e-commerce, and I think a lot of that was like, hey, you can drop ship and take our platform and just like become an entrepreneur. The reality is a lot harder than they make it seem. But they built the dream for a lot of people that started those Shopify sites.
Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting, Tim. We'll see how many people pull that off, though.
Interesting idea. I like to see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. We'll definitely have to have another conversation around the B2B module. I think that there's a lot more we could talk about that. Maybe we'll bring you guys back on with the NetSuite stuff, and you guys will have a lot more to talk about.
Well, thank you to Beckie Sullivan and Tyler Jensen and Marshall Wolf Automation. Right? It's a pleasure to have you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.